I see. I think you need to do it full screen because you're adding clicked add notes, next animation. I think you need to have the view.
Okay, let me see here. So
Slideshow view.
yes, I think I'm probably sharing the.
There, that's good.
Is it good now?
Yes, that's good now.
Great, wonderful. So how come R&D teams and innovation teams don't get along, and how can we fix it? Is what I'm going to talk about. And my background, as I said, is in innovation management. I became head of innovation at Aftonbladet, which is the largest media company in Sweden, in 2008 at the cusp of digital transformation. We had a turnover of 2.1 billions, and 1.8 of those billions came from the daily paper. And we had a daily circulation of 500,000 copies, which is enormous in a country of 8 million people, as Sweden was at that time. And when we did our scenario planning for the future, our trend scouting showed that, okay, we will probably have maybe 100,000 people circulation in a few years. So we were standing in front of the question, what do we want to do? Do we want to fire 75 of all people and become a small company, or can we do something to stay relevant and make money and afford to still be this big media company? And we started experimenting with different ways of making money out of news online. And since then, since 2011, I've been in consultancy trying to help other companies achieve the success that we actually had at Aftonbladet, where we already in 2013 could see the profits from online news were bigger than the profits from the paper. And we were still growing. So beautiful story, super painful on the inside. I can tell you about that, where I have spoken about that at this conference earlier. So I'm not going to get into that today. But as I said, the last year, I've been working more and more with R&D teams and trying to understand if they can use innovation tools and how. And I gave this the original title a pretty long time ago, and then when I was putting together my presentation for today and looking back at those learnings I've had the last few months, I came up with a few alternative titles that might suit better for today. Maybe how to avoid analysis paralysis and make your R&D teams love to talk to customers. Could be one title, or murdering mistakes R&D leaders do in big corporations. Or perhaps how to build yourself to be a charismatic leader for both R&D and innovation people. I think we'll go with the first one. So this is how you avoid analysis paralysis and make your R&D teams love to talk to customers. One thing that's very, very apparent when you move from the innovation space and start talking to R&D teams is that they have no internal support team, which an innovation team usually has. There's they don't have marketing, sales, legal who help them with the daily tasks of moving their research towards commercialization, as the previous two speakers have been speaking about. When you look at the innovation teams on the other side, they do have support teams, but they don't have budgets. So similar, and I mean, if we go back to Malcolm Perry's presentation, I mean, you had research and you reached a point where you have enough revenue and tech maturity to move into the innovation space from the research space. And this is the situation, the totally different situations for the teams. And there's one thing that both types of teams have in common, and that is that they do no or weak testing of their ideas in the market. So that's the main problem. And the one obvious thing that we notice when we've been out working with both types of teams. So we have these R&D teams, and they often have really big budgets. They have a lot of money to spend. They are highly educated, and as Professor Perry said, they have very strong research ethics, and they measure success in publication and citation. And when we ask them to test their ideas in the proper market, it's not going to be so easy. I mean, if you want to do that slightly fast and learn a lot on the way and be lean, as innovation teams usually are, you're going to have to redesign how you work and work in a totally different way, much less safety than you have with your usual research ethics. And what happens when they take their research and their research practices and they try to go into the market with those, with the big budgets? They very, very often get stuck. And if they don't get stuck, or it might go even worse, and they might crash right into something on the way and hurt both the research and their credibility. So this is a painful situation. And what can we then do to help those research teams? Well, this is where we put in our innovation tools. And for us who come from the innovation space, we often look at things. Do we see that this is something that we're acting in strategic certainty, or are we in strategic uncertainty? And in terms of business as usual, then being this the usual thing we're doing on a corporate side, it's our core business. And it's super important to remember that the moment that we leave our core business and we leave our usual customers, the ones that we usually deliver to, then we're on new turf, which is strategic uncertainty, and we have to work in another way. And there are different tool sets. So we have this big freight ship that is the business as usual way of working. And then we have the innovation team way of working, which is more like a pilot boat, who before you send off the entire corporation into a new direction, you send the little innovation team, the little pilot boat away up front to research there, or to discover more things about the area where you're trying. So you set up a strategy within the corporate, and you send, before you start sending your big, slow, super efficient cargo ship in that direction, you send the pilot boat out before to see, okay, is it actually true? Run a few small experiments to see, is it actually true, those hypotheses and the assumptions we have why this new strategy is good. And they run experiments and they come back and they feed back those learnings to the corporation. And this is what we need to help our R&D teams to do. So rather than, I mean, they're big budget research work with the ways of working that are the ethics, where success is measured in number of presentations, etc. That's their business as usual. And the way they do understand if an idea is a good idea or not is by doing analysis and prognosis. So when now they're in this new turf, when they're going to put their research into commercialization phase, they have to realize that, okay, we don't have any data that we can do analysis on, so we cannot use that for prognosis. We cannot analyze our way forward to understand how we're going to commercialize our research, because you're in new turf. And the way and the toolbox we use in new turf is hypothesis and experiments. So basically, running doing experiments is, again, back to the scientific method, of course, but in much faster iterations, where you set up hypothesis, what has to be true for this to be a good idea. You run an experiment to see if what you expect to happen actually happens, and you collect the data and you analyze that and see if you can disprove the hypothesis or not. And you do that until you've collected enough data, so it's not strategic uncertainty anymore, but rather strategic certainty. And that part of thinking and way of working is super comfortable for the R&D teams. But the one thing that is not comfortable for them, from what I've seen, is the getting out of the building and talking to people. It's way out of many of the researchers' comfort zone to put their research in front of a potential consumer and say, okay, is this something that you want to use, and try to sell that to them. And that's where what we have to get them to do when they become the little pilot boat in front there. It is actually getting out building. So put your little researchers onto the pilot boat and send them off into reality. And once we had understood that, okay, this is super painful, and this is where we can really help them, we build a little program. So I'm going to present a little case study here the last few minutes, where we've tried to help these research teams. And this could perhaps be one of the tools that the businesses on campus, or that Marco mentioned, and Professor Malcolm also mentioned, this could be a tool that they could be using, perhaps. So we built a little program that we call Get Out of the Building. So it's basically really fast, a few weeks, where you make sure that you understand the research idea or the product idea, the service that you're thinking that you're going to be able to commercialize from your research. And you do workshops to define markets and customer segments where we think that we are solving an important problem with high priority for the customers. We do assumption mapping, and we design experiments. And this is where we don't use a lot of AI in this process based on what's been in the previous discussions. But what we do use AI for is to understand more about those defined target customer personas. So we try to learn enough about them through using AI to be able to make them interested in what we're doing and get them on a call. because those experiments that we are running during the experiments weeks is getting out of the building, actually finding people to talk to learn more about the research and see if this could be maybe a component in their products, or if it actually could be an end product for this customer. And then we have a final workshop where we go through the reports and plan next steps. So based on basically help them with three things. Who are they going to talk to? How are they going to talk to them when they get out of the building? And why are they going to talk to them? Using LinkedIn to find people of that fit the target persona. Using AI, as I said, ChatGPT mostly, to learn enough about those profiles so that we can make them interested in talking to us, and using automation tools to send messages on them, presenting ourselves, presenting our research, and asking them to talk to us. And super important is to help the researchers with adequate scripts for those types of interviews. This is not research questions you're asking. You're asking more, you're trying to put them more in a buying situation, more closer to actually transactions, business transactions, than their usual research questions. And then why? To help the R&D teams understand that, okay, this is you need to ask enough questions, meet enough people, interact with enough customer segments so that you understand what kind of value proposition it is that they are getting, that you're trying to deliver to them. And most R&D teams that we've met are familiar with technology readiness levels, but we introduced them to investment readiness levels and innovation readiness levels, so that they actually get a roadmap for how to move more and more towards being a venture that could be successful and that investors could be interested in investing in. So that is, if I can get my slides moving. So that's the little experiment that we send the boats out on, to collect enough data to come back home and see, okay, is it actually true that this is the type of commercialization that will be interesting for my research? And I promised results from a case study, and this was actually finished just the last few days. I see it's hard to see the numbers here. But this was an R&D team. They had, during the first workshops, we identified 4 potential segments where their research the technology that they were developing in their research could be useful. It was in robotics, in smart homes, toys and gamings, and in sports equipment. So super wide scope was what they had coming in. And we started contacting people, doing outreach on LinkedIn to these 4 segments. We had identified different personas within the different segments that we, using AI, could get a good script together to target and send messages to using LinkedIn. And we could, in 12 weeks, we got them 19 meetings with people from these were personas fitting the different people fitting different personas. So from AMRs, they had 5 calls. It took us 54 people that we had to contact before we could get there. So super successful channel. We didn't have to do a lot of research, reach out to get the calls. But during those calls and in the interviews, following the interview scripts, they could identify that the hypothesis they had about why their technology could be useful for the AMR companies did not work out. So sad but true. In just 5 calls, they were like, okay, we now know that AMR is not for us. And smart homes, we needed to do 156 outreach before we could get to 5 calls. So more work. But in those calls, we found that the companies were interested in the technology, but they, all 5 expressed interest, but none of them were ready to take a next step. So that's the yellow light there. In toys and gaming, we needed to do 81 outreach before we got 2 calls. Both those calls were super positive, saying that, okay, this is really interesting. This is something that's in the plans for where we want to take our products in the future, but still also no next step. So also a yellow light. But for sports equipment, in just 65 contacts, we got 7 calls. And especially within helmets, actually, they were super interested. So the team we were working with signed NDAs with 2 different companies and are now doing pilot studies and prototyping with those teams. So that way, we had those. That's how we put them on this little pilot boat and sent them out, and they could report back to the research that, okay, we actually have a real interest here in sports equipment. We have our first 2 potential customers that we are now running pilots with, and they can move further up in their investment readiness levels and are much less scared to get out of the building and have a model that they can use over and over again. And that's the thing that I was planning to share with you today.
Very interesting. I'm curious. You talked about R&D now, and you say that they have money. I believe that was one of your early slides, right?
Exactly.
Who funds these R&D groups that you're talking about?
These are typically the the R&D team of corporates. So if you compare an innovation team or an R&D team at a corporation, a typical R&D team will have much more money to spend than an innovation team will have.
Okay, I guess the companies I've worked with, usually R&D and innovation is sort of meshed together, and that's why rather than being separate entities.
And these are, I mean, the companies we've studied, they have had separate R&D departments and separate innovation departments. And some of them have pretty mature models for when they call it R&D and when they call it innovation. And the Gore-Tex, for example, they say that it all has to do with the level of uncertainty. And if we don't know what type of a product we're developing, or if we don't know what problem we're solving, then it's innovation. But if we have a problem that we try to solve, then we use the R&D toolbox to try to solve that problem. For example, a PFAS-free lining inside of the Gore-Tex clothes, for example.
Okay. So you're using the innovation when you don't know, you aren't exactly trying to solve a problem. You're coming up with ideas that there may be a market for.
Yes, and the level of uncertainty is much higher. So you have a hypothesis that maybe it's a good idea that we also deliver our clothes as a service. But that is super high level of uncertainty. And then you have to have the pilot boat approach. But if it's okay, if we manage to find a PFAS-free lining for Gore-Tex fabrics, then it's the level of uncertainty is very low. I mean, they know it's going to be a success because it's their current type of customers, it's their current channels, etc.
Yes, I was just trying to get clear in my mind. Years ago, I ran a consumer research thing, and we did a lot of research on the companies would come to us and want us to do the research with the consumers on before they did something. And I was trying to figure out the position of where that would be in relation to your presentation, but I thought it was extremely interesting what you were talking about there of getting out the building, because you literally do have to talk to the people and make sure you're talking to the right people to get the right information of what's going on.
And ask the right questions. I mean, as you were an expert in your consumer research, and it's a skill set similar to, and a lot of it is really similar to the researcher role. But it has to be fast. I mean, here we speak to reach out to 85 people and we get 5 interviews, and that could not be something, I mean, that would not be a big enough group to base a research study on.
No.
But they feel so unsecure. I mean, and at first really reluctant to do that kind of work because it feels like it's just fake and they're not going to get proper learnings, and it's uncomfortable for them. But once they see the value, just getting outside of the building and sitting down and talking and asking those open questions to trying to explore the commercial situation around their research idea, then they're super happy and they gladly do it themselves.
Okay.
Afterwards.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions of Agnes? Any questions of any? Do you have any questions or comments that you would like to share with her? I thought the presentation was...
I will share great thanks, Agnes, for your presentation and for your participation and joining our conference in annual basis. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to see you in Sweden.
Yes.
soon,
Please get in touch when you're coming here.
Yeah, okay. Also, we will see Marco. You can go for next presenter.
Okay, unless Marco has a question. Do you have a question or a comment? Okay. Then Ben, I see you are here. Would you like to let us see you?
Yes, am I now visible?
You are now visible. Wonderful. I am so pleased that you're visible. That is very good. You know, when it just says your name, it's a little confusing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, so you are our final presenter. And let's see, you are with a consulting group in India, right?
Well, I have a dual role, so I have spent the last 12 years living and working in India, but I'm now back in the UK, so I'm flying occasionally into India, but my new base is in the UK with a global role.
Oh, okay. So I was going to ask where in India you were. I've taught a few times at the University of Mumbai, and that's why I asked.
Well, we first moved to Bangalore. And then because the weather's just fantastic, as is the food. And then from Bangalore, we did move to numerous places. So we lived a short while in Hyderabad, Pune, Chennai, Gurgaon, and then we spent a lot of time in the end in Mumbai, actually. So yeah.
Very good. Well, it is time, and you have 30 minutes.
Okay.
So I am looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Okay, so I'm just sharing. Is my screen visible? Okay, so I'm hoping I'm visible and audible.
You're visible.
Yeah, okay.
Good.
Good. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through tech innovation and AI from a construction consultancy perspective and how we've gone from the hype and just talking about it actually moving into reality. So what I'm going to do is quickly take you through why we're doing it and from what are the main reasons, what it is we're doing and how we're doing it, and then I'll finish with some conclusions and if we have any time, some questions and answers. So, but just before I get into that, I just want everyone on the call and listeners to understand some key perspectives as to why we've really moved into tech innovation and AI from my perspective and from the company perspective and from whether we were doing it from a revenue or value perspective, because I think that is really relevant for companies that are moving into this space. So for me, I got into this because, like we've just spoken about, I was the MD of Gleeds India for over a decade, and we managed to grow the Gleeds business out there from 10 people and one office with 3 clients to what it is today, which is over 500 people in over 6 offices with over 100 clients. And the only way we could grow and scale and deliver the client satisfaction levels was through digital transformation and now moving into AI. There's a huge drive to start adapting our AI tools and working methodologies in India and across Gleeds Group. So that's how I got into the Chief Digital Officer role, focusing on technology and AI. And from a Gleeds perspective, we're very traditional business. We've had the chairman on this conference call already and one of my colleagues, James Garner, and we are a traditional business and we're a service consultancy. But what we are recognizing is the market's changing and we are doing our best to start to digitally augment what we do. And we're looking at finding digital ways of working, how we can enhance the technology so we can drive the proposition and productivity and performance. And we're looking to do that for the industry, not just ourselves. But there's another perspective that, again, I just wanted to share because it's very relevant. When the business decided to digitally advance itself, we did it because we wanted to drive our revenue. We are going to remain a consultancy that is tech-enabled, focusing on revenue growth, as opposed to either converting to a tech company or creating a tech company that leveraged consultancy and focused purely on value. Now that's might not seem a big difference, but it's actually a huge difference when you've actually got to use the technology and AI to augment an existing business as opposed to create a new business which is focused primarily on value. But we are absolutely in the revenue rationale. So why did we do it? And I like simple slides. The main reason we did it, because digital transformation, and the way that this conference has coined the phrase technovation and AI. Why do we do it? Because digital transformation enables better performance, better productivity, better proposition, and better profitability. And there's lots and lots of studies from lots and lots of companies and lots of academia to illustrate how digital transformation can do all these things. But we've got real life examples now within Gleeds, which illustrates that, which is helping us accelerate the digital transformation programs that we have. So I like to use a really simple phrase when I'm explaining it. DT equals 4P. So that's why we're doing it. What are we doing? Well, before you can really start to leverage AI, you've actually got to maneuver your business. So you've got to digitalize. You've got to digitize your business processes, making sure all analog is digitized. Then you have to move into digitalization, and only after that can you start to move into transformation and putting the data in a format that you can actually leverage AI. I think there's a lot of businesses out there, particularly in the built environment, thinking, wow, the market's changing. We need to get some technology and we must use AI and we can buy something off a shelf. That is absolutely not the case. And I know I'm probably speaking to a lot of people who understand that, but you know, the reality is there's traditional businesses out there who don't necessarily understand you have to digitize, you have to digitalize, and then you move to transformation and being able to look at AI. And the way we're approaching that process in Gleeds is by having 5 key pillars. The first being we're looking at ways to connect our technology. So prior to us embarking on this journey, we were extremely siloed. We have operations all over the globe. As Richard's explained, we have operations all over the globe and 3,000 plus people, and we were working in quite a siloed technology environment. So what we're trying to do is realize all that value and connect the technology, because that's efficient, it helps governance, but more importantly for me, we can start to collect the data. And that brings me on to the second point. We're starting to look at data in a more of a strategic manner. So we have a data strategy, we have data experts, and we are looking at ways from internal processes and external processes in terms of how we can better utilize data. And that's a really important step, because that makes people understand why we do have to digitize and then digitalize. When people can really see the value that data can bring, and I'm not just talking about Power BI dashboards now, I'm talking about really utilizing the data so you can make better decisions, whether it's in terms of performance related or client-based thinking, or you name it, you can start to see the benefit of that. Another important pillar, which I have learned over the years of driving digital transformation, is having a cognizant workforce and a culture that is ready for change. Now, it's easy to say, but actually to be able to have that is a massive, massive undertaking. I would say that's probably the most difficult undertaking in all this journey for all the companies, because unless you have people who are aware and there's a desire to change, then anyone's ability to make them change is going to be very, very difficult. So that's a very important piece, and I'll touch upon it in a little bit more detail later. The other, the fourth pillar is making sure that you can develop new proposition. So yes, we're looking at ways to improve our normal things, but we've also got to find ways that enhance the proposition so that we're constantly finding ways to engage with our clients and to empower our people. And that's, again, that's really important, because then people can see, okay, the investment is really worth it because we have X, or clients come back and they say, you know, Gleeds have done something really value add, and that's an important part of this journey. And then the fifth, which is probably less sexy than the other side of things, is just looking at existing processes and systems that you have in a business. And that can be anything from this administration tasks to the actual high earning fee activities. Looking at each one, breaking it down, documenting and putting the process on paper, and then figuring out how can we augment that process? How can we make it better? Can we delegate any of the process involved? Can we eliminate any of the process involved? Can we find software that actually can you know, do that process for us? And doing that one by one for every process in the organization and just ticking them off one by one. Again, that's a really, really important piece of this jigsaw. But it's all of these. You can't do any of these in isolation, and it's definitely not just about technology. So very quickly, in terms of how we do it, and there's a few steps, so, and I've alluded to that a little bit, but finding new ways of working is extremely important. Like I've just spoken about before, standardizing the core processes is really important. So certainly when you have a global business, there can be lots of global ways of delivering the same process. Actually, that can be really inefficient. So look at the processes that you can standardize, and then make sure that that methodology is adopted across a business is an important step. Making sure that when you are reviewing your processes and new ways of working, that you embed quality management and service excellence within that process. There's two reasons for that. One, you drive constant improvement and excellence in the delivery, and two, you create or you negate another reason to have independent quality assurance checks, which again is far more efficient. And when I did allude to it, when you're looking at and when we looked at standardizing our processes and new ways of working, we did find lots of examples of parts of our processes which could be eliminated, but we also found lots of opportunity to either automate it through Power Apps or other types of software. And we also found huge opportunity to start offshoring to our other parts of the business. Like, you know, I used to live and work in India, and there's a huge opportunity to start utilizing parts of the business in certain ways that actually helps the business as a whole, and ensuring. And the other really important part is to start the process small, start one thing, and like I've said, do one thing, roll it out, and then look at another thing. But you've got to start and complete, start and complete, start and complete, and really get traction in that manner. Another important step is to, and like I said, making sure that the technology is connected, but it's not just about connection, it's making sure that it's secure, governed, and efficient. IT governance is extremely important. You've got to make sure that there's procurement oversight. Again, with a large business, there are pockets of the business that will buy IT in isolation, and that completely breaks the chain. So you've got to have the governance, you've got to have system architecture, and make sure that it is managed at a macro level. Obviously, the infrastructure is extremely important with regards to standards and security, and having organized in a manner that it's structured and the culture is there in place in each part of the business, and particularly at C-suite level. And then making sure that you have high standards internally and externally with regards to IT, because as soon as the quality is not as high as it should be, then parts of the business will break this cycle and they'll start to do it independently, which breaks my ability to have connected technology. A third step is again, whenever you come up with a new proposition, we have to solve industry problems. There's a lot of new technology innovations that, in my mind, are fabulous and they're wonderful, but they don't actually solve a problem. And I always come back to, well, is it monetizable? And if it's not, then we're not going to build it out. But what we are focusing on at Gleeds is new solutions and intelligence for the built environment. The solutions blend our consultancy with cutting edge technologies, and our intelligence is all about providing real-time information that's relevant for the built environment, so our people and our clients can make informed decision makings. And those are the two rules of thumb that we have when we're developing new solutions and propositions. And I won't go into this too much, but when we do look at a proposition that we're going to create that's new, so not looking at automating an internal process. This is about creating new value, new proposition. I follow a simple proposition and revenue matrix. So if the value created for clients is high, that's a good thing. And if the value created for ourselves is high, that's also a good thing. So what we really try to do is make sure when we create a new proposition, we are in what I call the digital target zone. So it's high value for clients and it's high value for us. And the area that we absolutely stay away from is the service death zone, which I call it, which is parts of our industry which I believe are going to be obsolete in 1 to 5 years through the advances in technology, and certainly with the advances in AI. And unfortunately, fortunately, whichever perspective you look at it from, the advances in AI are absolutely going to start to erode some of our traditional businesses and some of the traditional ways of working in the built environment. And that's why we have to be very aware of it. And that's why we have to do what we're doing. Step 4, which I did say I was going to talk about in a little bit more detail, is making sure that you have that culture and people that are ready to change. So communication is absolutely key. And I like to follow ADKAR, which is all about raising awareness and desire and having a knowledge given to the people within the company to understand what a digital transformation piece is and why we're doing it. Then we've also got to make sure that they're trained and have the ability to deliver the transformation. And then it's constant reinforcement of the whole thing, telling people why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and here are the benefits. And it's just a constant cycle, and you've got to do it. And the day you stop reinforcing it, then unfortunately the transformation, whether it's macro level or micro level, might actually diminish. And do not underestimate raising awareness and desire at board level, because it has to come from the top. Finally, step 5, which is converting the data to enable NI. And I know I'm speaking to a group of people who will understand this, but there are people in the built environment particularly who don't necessarily realize there's a huge piece of work involved in converting the data into a position that you can actually leverage AI. I think there's a lot of people beginning to understand the benefits of AI, but then they don't necessarily know how they go from the traditional business structures into a position that actually enables the AI capabilities. And, you know, that's all part of the digitalize, transform, and then leverage the AI. But if you do, the opportunities for, certainly for our company and the built environment, are absolutely massive. At the moment, we're using data to talk about descriptive analytics and diagnostic analytics. So in other words, what happened and why did it happen? But what clients in the industry really need to know is predictive and prescriptive analytics. So what will happen and how can we make it happen? So, you know, how do we avoid program delays and cost overruns and health and safety issues and excess carbon emissions or embodied carbon in projects? And actually, what can we do to make sure that all those problems not only go away, but we can actually really accelerate beneficial ways of working? So that's absolutely where I'm looking to move Gleeds and really leverage the technovation and AI in our industry and for Gleeds. So in conclusion, I've explained why we're doing it, but I can't underestimate the importance of digital transformation, particularly in the business environment at the moment. The built environment has been quite slow in the uptake of innovation and adoption of technology and adoption of change, but that is no longer the case. The amount of investment that's going into prop tech and contech is massive, and it's showing no sign of diminishing. And if you don't do transformational change, I think you're going to either start being overtaken by competitors, you might be completely removed out of existence by a competitor that you didn't even know about. But you have to, in my opinion, start to do this in order to future-proof yourself as a business and stay relevant. But on the flip side, in my view, and we're seeing it, if you do embark on digital transformation and you do get it right, it's absolutely game-changing. You can raise performance, you can raise productivity, you can raise proposition and create new offers in the market. And each one of those things enables you to have far better profitability. And better profitability and better margins enables more and more investment opportunity, which enables you to get better and better. So your service proposition elevates, and it's just a perpetual positive cycle. So it's a journey. It's painful. Is there a huge cultural change in education piece? Yes, there is. But is the pain worth the gain? It absolutely is. And that's why Gleeds are supporting this conference and also supporting technovation and AI going forward. And that's it for me. I'll conclude there and just...
Oh, great presentation.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, I liked your 5-step approach to things.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a couple of questions, and I hope some of the audience do. Is one of the things that you did mention there is you're going to have to look at that dead zone, is the idea of things that AI is going to change that are not going to be relevant, I guess you would say, anymore.
Yeah.
What kinds of things are you thinking in terms of?
Ooh, that is I could scare a lot of people because, you know, I'm actually at another conference, and we've been having this exact conversation, and AI never fails to just inspire conversation. And, you know, people start talking about metaverse, and you know, this could go in many directions. But my view my view is AI is going to affect everything that we do as a business. I think AI will touch every element of our business. I'm confident about that. We're using large language models now to automate a lot of our processes. But I think where we're looking at it is we're using the bookending approach. So we'll always have consultants and professionals at the beginning. We'll use AI in the middle, and then we'll always try to have consultants at the end. So we're going to bookend it in that manner and stay relevant of the consultants and add our value as consultants. But we definitely see AI as being in the middle.
Okay. We'll see if someone else has a question or a comment that you would like to make.
Yes,
Just to
make a
congratulate.
comment?
Very good.
Yes, I thought it was an excellent presentation. I loved your step 5 slide, that the idea that converting data and this descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescription. I really like those steps. What we did, why we did it,
Yeah.
what happened, going
Well,
along with it.
I spent when I was in India, I had the great privilege and pleasure of working with Gartner, and I think Gartner are incredible in this space. And you know, they always used to talk to me about this, and I think the predictive and prescriptive analytics using data is going to be absolutely massive, and that's essentially what a lot of the AI does. You know, but I think there is definitely some level of thinking that you can just buy technology and therefore you have AI. I think there's people who think that, but they don't necessarily realize, you know, if you're using information from the web and outside, then everyone has access to that. What you have to do is convert your own data and IP into a manner that you can then leverage AI, and that's the real future for us, I think.
I liked your comment that you have to embed quality and excellence at every step along the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's again, you see, it is actually quite an achievable thing. If you think about when you're pulling a process apart and you're putting it back together again, actually, when you consider quality management and service excellence, when you're rebuilding it, it's quite easy to bed it in. Whereas some of the old procedures and processes were done and there were quality assurance checks on the side, whereas you can actually embed it, and that really helps. And it certainly helps with the data collection and management and storage.
Yes, and where you have to analyze each step. Years ago, I used to give some presentations on customer analysis, and one of the things we always tried to determine what were all the touch points where the firm touched the customer, because there were so many different touch points that you had to analyze each one individually.
You see, I love that. And the fact is, I think it's only when you start to do that level of interrogation, you actually understand the business. And you learn a lot about your business and what you can maybe do less of, but what you need to do more of. And that type of analysis has been really interesting from my perspective.
Yes, I think so. Well, I think all 4 presentations were absolutely excellent. Hanadi, I don't know if you're still here. I see that Monica is here, who is going to chair the next session. And I think that I'd like to turn it over to Monica, if that's, or Hanadi.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. And thank you very much, Professor Burberry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, for your presentation. It's amazing presentation. I like it, Leeds, always.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Hi, Monica, how are you?
Doing well, Hanadi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your supporting our event, for your participation. Most of your staff, it's with us yesterday and day before yesterday.
Yes. I see
Hanadi,
Petter just joined also. Hi, Petter.
Now the timing for, I think, Peter, your chairing session, the next one. Now it's Peter though.
yes,
sounds
I was
good.
just checking that. I was
Exactly. I'm so sorry
sure
because
there's a different.
this is it's a mistake of Beverly. Beverly, don't leaving us. We need to make a
well,
Are you
photo.
saying that Peter is chairing the session, that Monica is not?
Monica, it's
Yes.
next one.
I'm on the next one.
Oh,
That's okay, Professor. I was ready.
okay, that's fine. And then Peter is doing the last one?
No,
no, we're doing this one right now.
Petter's
Oh,
gonna
you're
do
doing
2
it
o'clock,
together?
and I'm doing 3 o'clock. No.
So Hanadi, Brian Cassidy's here. I think he's a participant and not a panelist. Is there a way for you to make him a panelist? He's currently here. I believe he's a participant.